We grew up, we got ridiculed for a lot of things that we love, and to see the gaming community, but just this culture here of all the people here coming together and everyone's accepted, like you said, but also just the power of it.
And I was just so excited because it takes my love of all things geek, video games, comic books, all things pop culture, and my love of sports, because I am an avid sports fan, grew up watching sports, grew up playing sports a little bit, and just seeing the two come together just fills my heart with joy. And seeing this panel tonight, so much love. Absolutely recommend Geeks Who Like Sports podcast. It's funny, very interesting to listen to, and if you love all things geek and all things sports, definitely check it out.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special edition of the Geeks Who Like Sports podcast here at PAX Online 2020. We thank you so much for tuning in. I am Ray Carcel, one of the co-founders and co-hosts of the Geeks Who Like Sports podcast, which we heard wherever podcasts are heard. You can also find us, of course, at geekswholikesports.com, Geeks Who Like Sports on Facebook, and Geeks Who Like SP1 on Instagram and Twitter. And, of course, I'm joined by my other co-host and co-founder, Lee Elias. Lee, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful, Ray. I'm not going to give my normal weather report because we have so many guests on the show, so it's good to see you as always.
Yes, we have a full show with some amazing folks who are joining us today. First off, we have our good friend, returning PAX champion, by the way, coming back from last year's PAX panel, the one and only Gordon Bellamy. Gordon, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic and just great getting to spend an afternoon with all of you.
Awesome. Gordon, of course, is on the board of directors for the Wave VR. And, of course, you can see him right now on the Netflix mini docu-series High Score in episode 4. So definitely check that out. We also have with us an EA Sports game changer. You can catch his Twitch and YouTube channels, the Finn FTW. Finn McConnell. Finn, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you all doing on this fine day?
Doing fantastic, sir. We really appreciate you coming in, despite having nothing but Philadelphia memorabilia plastering the walls behind you. So
I know. I'm sorry. I'm just so obnoxious.
Hey, Finn, never apologize for that, number one. Ray, you've got New York stuff in the back of your house, and don't talk about it. One of these teams is still in the playoffs.
We're ugly cow.
We're also outnumbered again. We have two Philadelphia fans here today, but we also have a friend from Cleveland. He is the CEO of Shacknews, the one and only Asif Khan. Asif, how you doing today, my friend?
Oh, pretty good. You know, none of my teams are in the playoffs, so I don't have to worry about missing games right now. So I was like, sure, come talk about sports.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna get to talk a lot about Cleveland later in the show as we, of course, get into our sports. And for those of you who don't know, just a brief intro about what Geeks Who Like Sports is about, right? This is something that me and Lee came up with a little over a year ago, where we realized that we were talking about Spider-Man versus Wolverine as much as we were talking about the Eagles versus the Giants, the Flyers versus the Rangers, or the Super Bowl or whatever. And we realized that there had to be other folks like us out there. So that's what this is about. That's what this show is about. This is what this podcast is about. It's about folks who can enjoy video games and comic books and movies just as much as they like seeing their sports teams in the playoffs, or in the case of Asif, going 6-10 every year and missing the playoffs. So but we appreciate everybody being here. So that's basically the catalyst.
6-10, that's a good record.
Yeah, 6-10 is a good year for the Browns this millennium.
6 wins.
That's always looking on the bright side of your life. I like it. That's it. We'll take it. Get a thumbs up for that one.
If it makes you feel better, I think my Giants are going to fare much better this year, but we'll get into that later. We got a great show for you folks today. We got a lot of geek stuff to talk about. We're going to kick things off with, of course, being PAX. And, of course, we have some folks entrenched in the game industry here, including alongside myself and Lee. So we're going to start with some big games that have come out recently, some big games that have been announced. The Avengers just came out. We got some announcements from DC Fandom, as we like to call it here on the show. Gotham Knights, Suicide Squad. We got Spider-Man, Miles Morales coming out later this year with PS5. But we wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this because we think it's a really poignant topic about what's going on in the world right now. Are comic book games with Kamala Khan, with Batgirl, with I think we can say King Shark counts as diversity, maybe. We can and Miles Morales are comic book properties a great way to get more diversity in the video game space, as they're already in a way a proven commodity. I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Gordon, let's start with you.
Oh wow, I think it's great. Games where we can play together, right? I think that people have their experience as hero, as protagonist, but what's really interesting now is that the games are connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for us to be able to have experiences where we play together, where we can be different and enjoy it. It's like something sports games always had. So like you playing the Giants and going to a Super Bowl, right? That's obviously like high fantasy, and that's okay. I think that like these comic book heroes are sort of a similar experience where people will get a chance to navigate the world from a different perspective than reality, and that brings us all closer together because we can all share it and talk about it and just sort of love each other more.
Asif, what do you think?
Oh, I think with Avengers just came out this month, and I think it's done a lot for representation of Muslim people in video games with Kamala Khan. Like there aren't many games with Muslim protagonists, especially a female Muslim protagonist who's like young, and showing her dynamic with her family, like what it is like to be first generation in America, I think is really cool. I think the comic book space has been very open in that respect for a really long time, and it's getting better. And that has spilled over to video games. I hope someday it'll spill over to film as well, or TV. But yeah, I think Kamala Khan in Avengers is like a big win for diversity, for representation and stuff. And yeah, I think Miles Morales is another one of those examples of just a cool character who's not, a white dude with short hair and a beard that like is usually the protagonist in most video games. So I think comic books can definitely be a vehicle for that. And I think because those stories already exist, those universes already exist, it's cool to see game devs tell stories like that. And then in Avengers, they didn't really just take from the movies and then dump them onto the game, like which you see so many times in the past with comic book IP. They really made a new story for this, which I think is great. So I think, like comic books as a vessel for diversity, sure. I think they can continue to grow that in that respect.
Yeah, I think just to add on that a little bit, a lot of people nowadays are this and that, right? They aren't simply one thing where you could sort of synthesize. If you remember, like, I'll go back to geeky sports things. If you remember hockey on the Nintendo, right? And your team really was what it was. Like, we're going to be all big guys, or we're going to be all little guys, right? Or we're going to be our combination. But things are a little more complex now, right? It's a little bit more like Czech Republic back then. We like, I'm two little guys, a medium guy, and a big, right? And having comic book characters in games where they are this and that, and you get to play them, I think is something that a lot of people connect to, because most people, regardless of their race or their orientation or being a Giants fan, right, are more than that. They're like, there's like more to them, right? And so I think that,
more to them.
that like comic book games are a way that, that say the same message, right? My feelings.
No, for sure. I mean, I definitely, I think it's great because for me, I mean, I know as a gamer, I just want the game to be good. I don't really care what you know what I mean? Like, and again, it's hard for me because I mean, and probably speaking a little bit for Lee and Finn, we've had plenty of representation over the years, right? We are the pale, short, white guys with beards that Asif mentioned before. So we're covered. But I think that I think just wanting I think it's great to see this, everybody getting a chance to be represented now. And for me as a gamer, it's just cool to just want good stories.
I can jump in here too and say a couple things. One, there's two things I have about this one. One is, my kids are half Hispanic. So when you look at a character like Miles Morales or even Kamala Khan, it's really cool for my son and daughter to see that. And they're going to grow up in that environment now where that's somewhat of the norm. And speaking of what you just said, yeah, we've had that our whole lives. So it's interesting for me to see, they say you live through your kids' eyes, to have them both see heroes now in that regard. The other thing I wanted to say about this, and that it has to be said, is that I always love situations like this, because video games are always tapped on for being too violent, right? And here are comic books and video games leading the way, leading the charge, as Asif said, for changing things. Once again, proving that, the geek community is so powerful in this regard and never gets the credit that it really does deserve for pushing the gamut. And I just love that side of not just the gaming world, right, but also film, hopefully, Asif, as you said, and, comic books in nature, they're the ones leading the charge for the next generation. So I think that what's going on, especially in the Avengers right now and in Spider-Man, is really powerful for the community.
Yeah. But if you go back even as far as like Street Fighter, right? The first time I don't know, for you, maybe a different journey. Like maybe you all played Ken when you started. I don't know.
Blanca all day.
I'm actually an E Honda main, actually.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah,
and so
easy.
when you actually start to identify with who they are, right, and how they play, that's something that games uniquely do, right? And you start to find like who you are, right, and really sort of mirror that behavior. Like that's just between reading a story or I don't know, or watching a movie. Like you're getting to be yourself either as you are or as maybe you hope to be through these characters, right? And Avengers is an incredible part. There's an incredible universe, of people that people are getting to play as, right? And that's something you'll never be able to take away from them.
Absolutely.
Their time as those characters.
Kind of adding that, I think we've come a long way from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, where there is representation in that game, but it's like stereotypical representation a lot of the time. And you are only playing as Little Mac, but you do go up against Piston Honda and Don Flamenco and like all these really Soda Popinski or whatever, like really stereotypical characters. Like whereas like we're now moving to thinking about representation, and like even not in a sports game or anything, but even recently with Tell Me Why, we're seeing trans representation in a video game really for the first time and done well. And like Ray said earlier, it's about like telling a good story, because I think that'll resonate with any color person, any gender person, any gender identity person, if you're telling a good story that's compelling. And I think that's where the medium as video games has really just taken off in these last 20 years, I think.
And there's also not the same history. I just thinking about like Black Panther as an example, right? And I don't know if you love Black Panther or not. Don't care. But I do. But if you decide to go be Black Panther for Halloween, right, there's a whole burden of history that's tied to that, right? That's not your fault, right? But it just is what it is. However, if you play him in a video game, that's a totally legitimate, obvious choice. You're like, that's my favorite. That's who I'm going to be. Like that's who I identify with. And that's something that games have that freedom, give people that freedom, right? And it's awesome. It's great to be a part of it.
Awesome. Very cool. So moving on, unless Finn, do you have anything you'd like to say, or any other points on this?
I will be honest, I have played like one superhero game ever. that was it.
As long as it wasn't Superman 64.
No.
Good,
I've played like one of the. Well, actually, no, I lied. I forgot he's not a superhero. Never mind.
I'll give you a Philadelphia example though. Like if you go back in Madden days, when you first got to be Donovan McNabb, okay, there was a difference between you wearing a jersey, right, and being like, I am Donovan McNabb. Look what I'm going to do to you, right? And games were probably the first affordance where you could take on that persona, right, without a feeling of appropriation. Like, nope, it's just how it's going to be. Like, I am. This is how the cards have been dealt to me. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Well, and even beyond McNabb, like, who didn't play as Michael Vick in 04, right? Like, I mean, because you knew if you could get to be the Falcons, you were going to break everybody's ankles, right? You didn't think, you just you played to win the game, and he was the best player in the game. Like,
Vince Young in NCAA too. Like they're back when he was at UT.
Oh my gosh! See, maybe me. I'm one born for gimmick defenses. So those players to me are actually the greatest delight because I'm like, oh no, I will play whatever defense it takes to shut that down. But that's where my fantasy space is. It is purely on D. Like, oh, good luck with all these fast outside linebackers. Oh, you go whichever way you want. We'll be waiting for you with hugs.
Funny enough, that's what I used to do. If I ever
cornerbacks, all the swapping the rosters, all of it. Cornerbacks playing defensive end, absolutely. Whatever it takes to contain.
Well, actually, that's funny.
Jeez.
One of my best showings in Madden in a tournament was because somebody plays the Michael Vick Falcons, but I played as the Giants because I had Michael Strahan and OCU Umenyiora, and I ran nickel 9. I'll never forget this nickel 9-2 Velcro, which is basically the defensive ends split off into the flats, and they just sat there and they're like, "Come on, Vic. Either way, you're gonna go left. OC's there. You're gonna go right. Michael Strahan's there." It's like, so
Once again, proving that video games are real.
Yes.
To us.
Yes.
To us.
Yes. And real to everyone here on the PAX 3 watching us. We see
There you go.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you all for tuning in. So, speaking about a lot of video games, a lot of things were just announced also this week with from Nintendo. We had the Super Mario 3D All Stars that's coming, Super Mario Brothers 35, which of course celebrating the 35th anniversary of Mario. But what's interesting is that both these games are getting limited release windows, right? And so that basically means in 6 months, Super Mario Brothers 3D 35 is being taken off the Nintendo online store, and Super Mario 3D All Stars they're putting it back into the Nintendo vault. They're taking it off shelves. They're not going to make it anymore. They said it's only out for 6 months. Is this brilliant marketing by Nintendo, or is this are they shooting themselves in the foot here with taking games that are obviously super popular that people are already super hyped about and taking them down? I want to get your guys' thoughts. Asif, let's start with you.
I'm a Nintendo shareholder, so full disclosure out there. I've owned it for quite a bit. So you know why they chose March? It's not like next year is Mario's 36th anniversary, right?
Right.
They chose March because their fiscal year ends in March. And they did not provide software guidance that was that good. Like their software sales guidance was flat for this year compared to last year. So none of these games they just announced were included in that fiscal guidance that they gave us. This is like sandbagging of epic proportions. And then they're like stoking the fire by saying, "Oh, you like Mario? Well, you can only get it for this many days." And it's like, it's not a coincidence that you have Series X and PS5 launching during the same window. Like they needed a fall title, and maybe there's still something else coming. Like maybe there's a November thing from Nintendo. So I think that's part of the equation, is that they want to drive sales to these next 2 quarters. When it comes to Mario 35, I don't know what the hell they're doing. That game could be awesome, and they didn't do this with Tetris 99. Tetris 99 is still on the store.
And still phenomenal, yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
So if this is like the Tetris 99 of Mario, I'm sad that they're going to take it away from us. But I'm going to be playing the hell out of it come October, because like I feel like I've been training for this game my whole life. I'm like a Super Mario Maker 2 fan. I played Mario Maker 1. I've beaten every single 3D Mario, but I'm like especially fond of the 2D Mario games, especially fond of the 8-bit games and the soundtrack and everything. So I'm in. Next year happens to be the 35th anniversary of another Nintendo IP called Zelda. So it's like, so I feel like they're giving us the playbook and they're just going to do this again to us next year. And we're all suckers. If you love Nintendo, you're going to buy this. Like, I saw so many people complaining about it on my Twitter feed this week. And it's like, be honest with yourself. You were going to buy this day one if you wanted to play Mario 64, in my case, Sunshine, or in other people's case, Galaxy. Like, I honestly was talking to one of my friends before this came out, and I was like, I was hoping Nintendo wasn't going to nickel and dime us and charge $60 for each of the games. So at least we get all 3 of them for $60. I was like, I thought the Nintendo tax was going to be even higher for this. But so like, I feel like Nintendo fans, like legit Nintendo fans, are not going to be complaining about this once they get the game in their hands. But I do think it's financially driven. I don't think that it's like, I think it's silly and stupid, but
I think it's an interesting explanation because we mostly probably download games, right? Mm-hmm. So I think you think about retail. If you remember going to the store
retail.
To go into the store, right?
Once upon a time,
the expectation of what shelf space means, I bet, has really changed. And so the idea that games could be sort of seasonal and they'd have this like, oh, we're only going to put this on Target, right, or Walmart for 6 months, and then we're going to replace it, as you've already said what they're going to replace with, right, with something that's going to come, that's going to be a big event then, and then there's no inventory expectation, right? Like when it's like the Cadbury Bunny, like people love the Cadbury Bunny, right? No one complains that it goes away each year. They're like excited, and how exciting for them to to condition people to pay in a new way. Like you're actually describing it like a feature. Like it's not actually in the game. The game is just a video game. But the fact that it's only here till March is like a feature, like that could be on the back of the box that thus has value that they're monetizing. That's new. Like they've invented a new feature.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just happy that we're getting another Nintendo Switch Online game that isn't just a port of, SNES title or a port of an NES title. Like they're running out of things to put on the NES part of Switch Online. Yeah. I thought Tetris 99 was awesome, and it is awesome. And like when they did that, I was like, man, I want more stuff like this. Or like, I don't know if you guys have played Tecmo Bowl on Switch Online, but it has online play. Like they put netcode in that game, and it actually is good. So like things like that, I wanted to see more of. And this Mario 35 thing is that. I don't. But that game, that's the one where I'm like, God, it's gonna suck when they get rid of that. But I hope maybe it's gonna be something where, because it's essentially Mario Battle Royale, and Battle Royales function in seasons, right? So maybe we get like a second season of Mario 35 or something. Yeah,
but, and even this conversation is great. Like think like right now, I imagine, right, that Sony wishes you were talking about PlayStation 5. I imagine that Microsoft wishes you were talking about Xbox. But hardcore fans, right, hardcore gamers with their hardcore like grown-up dollars are like speculating about the Mario, right? We're talking about Mario like a PlayStation 5, like an Xbox with the same like passion.
Yeah, like, Mario is still king. He's still king in the industry. He's yet to be dethroned.
Well, and I also think on the Xbox side, they're struggling mightily with their first-party lineup this fall.
Oh, with Halo being delayed and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's very true. This is a good chance for Nintendo with basically just repurposing old product to come in and still get a lion's share of the market in the fall, depending on what goes on.
They're reimagining.
Exactly.
I don't know. I pay ridiculously close attention to their unit sales. You can slap Mario on Switch, Mario anything on Switch, and it'll sell 5 million units.
Yeah. So quickly before we move on, I just want to quickly get Finn's opinion on Mario, just because Finn, full disclosure, as the youngest of the 5 of us here, you might not have been around for a couple of these Mario games. Are you excited at all for the Mario 3D All-Stars and a chance to play these games?
I haven't played a Mario game since I was probably 16. So, but I've played a lot. I used to play it a lot I had a Nintendo 64 growing up.
So will this get you back into Nintendo and Mario?
Possibly. I do want to get a Switch, but I haven't seen them anywhere. Like ever since the pandemic occurred, they've been like sold out everywhere. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's changed now. I haven't looked, but I remember like they were like $500 or $600 on Amazon, like people reselling them.
Don't do that.
Don't pay scalpers.
No, I hate flippers. No.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump back on real quick and say it's been selling out. Like,
and that's one thing I think with this whole thing with the limited time to buy. I think that's gonna be prime time for flippers.
I'm also gonna jump in quick and tell Asif I am also a Nintendo shareholder. So Finn, what you're saying is music to my ears.
Well, aren't you guys all smart for getting Nintendo stock?
Yes,
all right,
we are.
So we briefly talked about Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. So the new next generation of consoles are supposedly right around the corner, coming in the next couple of months. Guys, are there any titles that you guys are particularly excited for? And also, I want to get your thoughts on what this could mean for sports games in the next generation, because we were talking a lot earlier before we started recording about Madden and its current state. What are you guys expecting for sports games in the next generation, and any other titles are you particularly excited for? We'll start with Finn. We'll start with you. We'll start with you this time, Finn.
I don't know. I've just been let down so many years with so many games. I think, in all honesty, the only game that 2 sports games that have not disappointed me are MLB and honestly one I rarely play, and that's NBA. I just feel like NBA has the best career mode out of all 4 sports games. It's the most in-depth, in my opinion. Don't even get me started on Madden's face of the franchise. I don't know what that was this year, but I'll get into that though. But I don't know. And one thing that does worry me about NBA 2K is that I think now if they start doing more games, because now they did PGA, I think PGA is a downgrade to NBA. I still think it's a great game. It's very addictive. But I think if they start doing more sports games, it's going to end up being like a little lazy, if you know what I mean.
Well, they also have like huge market share, right? When it comes to NBA 2K, because NBA Live, they can't even get it out the door every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, but like Ray, to your question about next gen sports titles, I feel like the first year of a console, they tend to be some of the wackest sports games, because EA and Take-Two, they're having to develop for 2 platforms simultaneously.
So I feel like it won't be the biggest upgrade.
Yeah, usually you get that huge upgrade the second year of a new console. So I'm not expecting anything out of Madden at all, because I have it on PC and it still sucks. So like, it does not matter how many teraflops you have. Like, someone needs to fix Madden. Like, there's hashtags out there about Madden being a monopoly, fixing Madden, fixing franchise mode. There's a lot that needs to be done there. So I'm not getting my hopes up about Madden.
Still want to know how I can re-sign anyone on the Eagles, because I have no money and I don't know where it's gone. I know, but it's like, how are the Eagles able to re-sign these guys every year, yet I can't?
But 2K did show off some really early next-gen footage of NBA 2K. I think it was during the PS5 reveal.
Yeah.
Then it looked really good. So like, I know that these companies are clearly working on a next-gen engine. I'm sure Frostbite is working on their new engine, right, over at EA. And there will be a better-looking FIFA and a better-looking Madden, and maybe a better-looking NHL down the road or something. But I don't think this is the year for that. I think that I kind of want to push back on PGA. I was pleasantly surprised about PGA 2K21.
So was I. No, I love it. Graphic wise, it's definitely a downgrade to NBA.
Sure. Oh no question.
The players are a little creepy looking.
Like, for me, it's the announcers. Like, they just say the dumbest stuff like all the time. Like, they're like, "This is to win the tournament," and I'm putting I'm like 3 strokes back from first place, and they're like, "This is to win the tournament," and it's not. It's like, that breaks immersion. They're like, "Oh, that's going straight for the fairway," and it's like in a bunker. It's like,
yeah.
Guys, I do know a great play-by-play guy we can talk about later that might be able to fix that. We'll get into
that. I would love that.
I think things are going to actually zig where you're thinking they're going to zag. I think moments in next-gen history. So you remember with, I guess I keep going back to Donovan McNabb. So remember when the PlayStation 4 was going to come out and he was going to be breathing and it was so cool, like that whole vibe. And then I think a lot of people who were old-time players thought that would make franchise cooler, when really their focus was on making Madden Ultimate Team cooler, right? Which is a whole different set of people who are deeply immersed in this collectible card game thing, which is not franchise mode by any stretch.
I could
right?
never get into it.
Yeah, right. I understand. However, a lot of people did, right? And they are like the fastest growing source of revenue, right? For Madden, by far, right?
It's gambling. You don't know what you're gonna get, and it becomes it's no different than being addicted to slot machines, in my opinion. Like, I think that
my point being is that I think what's going to happen is this. So you know how they talk about how the controllers are really cool, right? You're getting all this feedback, and you're like, oh, and it feels so good in my hands, like it's talking to me through my hands. Everyone's going to be like, how does this affect like gameplay and spinning or whatever, kicking field goals? No. When they make that controller do something fun inside the Madden Ultimate Team, okay, where you're getting those like Lord of the Rings slot machine vibes, holding the controller, where you're getting that feedback that's, I don't know what it is, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it just feels really good to get a new pack of cards. Oh, right? that hand massage or whatever it's going to do, right?
Oh, man.
That is going to be the thing, which is going to be like the hockey stick of money. They're not going to be able to count the money. Right? Yeah. And you're like, what about the salary cap? They're about your salary cap. They're going to be like, what about unrestricted free agents? No, it's going to be collecting those cards and the feeling of like, you ever play Wheel of Fortune, the slot machine? like Wheel of Fortune? Wheel of Fortune?
Yeah.
Okay, imagine if you could hug the machine while you're
Wheel
playing
of
it.
Fortune.
Yeah, right. But
Right.
imagine if you could hold that machine and have all those feelings.
Yeah.
That, I think, is what they're going to be able to do with like PlayStation 5 and Xbox One X. If you're deep in that world, it's going to be even like, blah. That is going to be the next
I could see
thing.
EA like, this game has no revenue salary cap. We're going for the sky as much as we can. No, it's sports games are getting so bloated. And, my quick comment on this is I wish, I know it's not possible. I just wish the competition would come back. When these companies compete, the consumer wins. And now they found this honey hole, and it's going to continue this way. We just spoke to the developers of another game like Super Blood Hockey, and I was talking about how refreshing that game is because it's not NHL. It's just a fun hockey game. You know what I mean? So I'd like to see some of that competition or just other options come back into the game market, but I think we're a long ways away from that.
I'd be curious actually if kids play. Like, I mean, I know like franchise mode happened in. Wait a second, I invented season mode. I'm sorry, season mode happened in my lifetime. I forget. But the point being,
It's
that,
true.
like it happened like in our
Watch high score,
lifetimes.
folks.
Yeah, but for kids, I wonder if how many kids actually on board into Madden through Ultimate Team. Not through playing the Giants or the whatever.
Yeah.
They just make their own crazy jerseys. They pick who they want. Because remember, they're all post-fantasy football kids. So fantasy football's been around their entire life, right? So the idea of, like, I get to pick who I want to be and ba-da-da-da is normal, like default for them. And, like, they might have, like, a whole different worldview of what they want in – by the way, whoever Madden is, right? Because hasn't been around in their lifetime. Like, they've never seen him on TV.
Super
Never
fair.
seen him ever.
Yeah,
right?
hasn't been in the game in years. Yeah,
hasn't been in the game, right? So they might have like a wild view and all the revenue of what Madden needs to be. That's not informed by like 20 years of history, but just like, have you seen the platinum cards? Oh, there need to be super platinum cards or whatever, because that's how we play.
That same age group, though, when they play NBA 2K, they play the career mode because what Finn said, the career mode in NBA 2K is excellent. And it does have microtransaction hooks in it, too.
And you can also play with other people, and you can buy yourself. I mean, I would never spend money, real money, work money, IRL work money.
Yeah.
Not my things that I earn, not my contracts in the game, but like I would never spend my hard-earned money on microtransactions or in-game currency.
But then wouldn't you be sort of dead to them? Like, think about it. Like, hear yourself. If you actually
I
said
am.
That, like, I
they
will
never
spend
focus
another
on
penny.
anything offline.
right. I'd be like, okay,
Oh my goodness.
don't let the door hit you.
They don't care about my.
I just had a question about NBA 2K this year, though, because the basketball season or postseason is still going on right now. The 2020 season is still happening. We don't even have new rosters. Like, free agency hasn't happened. Like, it seems like the weirdest thing to release. I know they had to release it when they did, but 2K21, I'm not that interested in buying it right now. I'm more interested in watching the playoffs and then seeing where free agents go.
I'm sure there will be a roster update, though.
patch, yeah.
But like right
I
now,
mean, isn't that what pretty much every new sports game is anyway?
Well, I think that to Asif's point, I think that's why a lot of folks are waiting until the new generation comes out, even for NBA 2K21. And I think that's why it was part of the PS5 showcase, is because I think that 2K understands that it's not going to be until that roster update after the draft, after free agency, all that other stuff, that'll be day and date with the PS5 and Xbox Series X version of the game. So I'm actually curious to see what the numbers are doing right now for the game, because I know a lot of folks who, like myself, are going to wait for next gen for that particular game for that very reason.
And then another problem I have with the series, when it comes to the career mode, you invest all that time into grinding your player up, and then none of it carries over to the next year. So I have a lot of friends that they're still playing 2K19 because they're still playing their career in 2K19, right? Yeah. Or in my case, the Cavs haven't been relevant in 2 years, right? So like I go back and play 2K16, right? Or, when Kyrie was on the team, like, and LeBron.
Really,
who was good.
You don't stockpile draft choices? That's what I used to love to do. I'd be like, I'm going to stockpile draft. I'm going to trade everything I got, every asset. I used to like the Clippers. I'll trade every asset to just to build a team in my image for the future.
You're the process.
Yes, I am the process. Exactly. No,
So-
yeah, the pandemic has totally killed the vibe a little bit, right? Of our annual expectations around sports,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Around when the finals even are, like, because you're like saying the NBA finals are still going on, and I just looked at my computer screen, and I was like, but it's September 5th, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, wait,
New
and
season should be starting.
it's accurate, and there's uncertainty, right, around when the new season would even be. Like, when
Yeah.
when even is the NBA draft? Is it during the NFL season?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that are going to be, like, when all this hits reality, like, there's going to be some really strange programming for those of us who have, like, an annualized sense of time.
And will it be permanent too?
I feel like they're
And
gonna
we're-
have to truncate a season coming
Yes.
up
It's-
so
I
they
think
can
it's-
get back on the old schedule.
I think it's going to be very unlikely that they're going to. This is going to be the schedule from now on. To Finn's point, I think it's going to be. You'll have one season where it might be truncated, or the dates will be closer together to this season to get them back on track. So you'll have shortened off seasons for a couple of years.
Personally, I don't think there should even be an off season for hockey. Maybe a few weeks, but they just had like how many months off? Like, what
so
more
this-
of a break do you need?
This is what I
Pretty
love
brutal
about
sport.
this show. We've naturally switched from geeks to sportsdom, which is exactly the point.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so I am going to bring this topic up right now because we are talking about it. One of the questions was, and we naturally progressed to it, is what does everybody think about the way sports are going? And one of the big things that we need to bring up here is there's no guarantee that there is going to be a next season just
Thank you.
yet. All right,
Yeah.
because it's something we have to talk about, especially with the NHL and the NBA, whose players are now in a bubble, and it's been very successful. But fans haven't really had this conversation of, can we expect NHL and NBA players to be in a bubble for an entire season? Because there's no way that the NHLPA is going to let that happen. There's no way the players are going to do that after being away from their families for most of them. So, again, we don't know what's going to happen right now. We know football is going to try and be better than baseball because they have to try and, well, it's not going to be hard to be better than what baseball did this year. But let's continue to talk about this. What's everybody's thoughts on where this is going right now?
I think there's an MVP that we're not considering, and I mean a most valuable pandemic that doesn't care when your draft is, does not care about your home and away schedule.
Exactly.
You have not noticed, has taken little consideration into what conferences are going to play football this season.
Yep.
The pandemic is ongoing.
Yeah,
And-
the pandemic is Dikembe Mutombo, and
Exactly, right.
everyone else is trying to shoot.
I not know.
Exactly. And I think that the disruptions, right? If you had looked back 6 months ago and said predict where we'd be now,
Right.
that would have been a very hard guess, right? And I'll offer that's the same thing. If you were to predict 6 months from now, even,
Yeah.
right? Forget a whole nother season. Forget a truncated season, right? We have, unfortunately, a lot of truncation is going on, unfortunately, because of what's affecting everyone. And everyone's sort of going to try to do their best. But the idea of preserving annual records and scoring averages and triple crowns and whatever, that's out the window for the next year.
Yeah, Gordon, here's another thing too. When people ask me about my teams, like, and how they're performing in the playoffs, and is it going to suck if your team gets knocked out? I just go back, like, I'm watching hockey in August and September. I'm pretty happy right now that it's even on the TV and that everyone's safe. So, like, a little bit of its perspective. I mean, fandom is a very important part of sports, and I get it, but I'm also a little bit just thankful that we even have the opportunity to watch sports at all right now. So, like, if my teams get knocked out, I'm just like, hey, I still get to watch the NHL. I still get to watch the NFL, like in all the other sports leagues as well. I have problems with baseball right now, but we'll talk about that. It's just, you got to be a little bit thankful here of, hey, I'm glad there's a season on right now, and this is very much a day at a time. And that as much as we love sports, yeah, as you said, the MVP, the most valuable pandemic, which we're going to use from now on, it truncates all of it.
There's also a sixth man to consider. And you're not going to want to hear this, but I'm going to tell you, everyone at home knows this, the Chinese television market. So as we may all know, the Premier League just terminated their Chinese TV deal for like $200 million. They didn't get the payment, right? The NBA facing challenges collecting that money, right? Upon which many of these salary caps,
Right.
many of these economies are foundationally built. There is no level of certainty, right, of the revenue which is going to come from the world's biggest market into all of these leagues in the year ahead, which will be, like I say, at the sixth man, the most radical change that's going to affect everybody, right?
Right.
And what sports look like here, we're talking about American sports for the most part, right? But here in American sports over the next year, right? Because if everyone has to take a big pay cut at the NBA, right, that's going to be the number one thing, not even the bubble, right?
Yeah.
Big pay cut. Well, all the sports,
The business.
hockey, baseball, all these things.
No, Gordon, you're dead right. I think the other aspect of it, beyond television deals, beyond streaming deals,
Yeah.
every single one of these sports is built on spectators being in massive arenas.
Yeah.
10, 20, 100, like 120,000 people fit in the big house in Ann Arbor, right? Like, if you don't have that economy around the sport, you're dead right. The money's not going to be there. And then there's going to be a work stoppage. Like, there's going to be the LeBron James of the world, or Messi, or in whatever sport.
Yes.
You know, that's why Mahomes signed that deal before the season. You know, like, these guys are getting their obligations. They're getting their guaranteed money, right? Like, now. I think that's even why LeBron signed a 4-year deal in LA to begin with. He didn't know that there was a pandemic coming, but he knew that there was uncertainty about television money. And I think it's a really good point you bring up about, and this goes beyond sports,
Right.
but how Tencent specifically affects game development. And it's no coincidence that these 3 Mario games that are in 3D All-Stars have already released on NVIDIA Shield in China.
Yeah.
It's not a coincidence. So,
No,
and you go back to the beginning of this NBA season when there was all this fighting about Hong Kong still, and how some players were trying to keep the peace because they knew there's a lot of money there.
You know, and I'll harp back to make this kind of realistic. It's kind of like what Finn said earlier in the show, except it's going to be in real life. The Eagles are not going to know where all of their money went. As Finn said, where did my money go? And that's what's going to happen in these leagues. But yeah, look, it's a day at a time like type thing. And again, there's going to be a lot of, you know, there's going to be a lot of discussion between the PAs and the leagues, and revenues are absolutely going to come down, and they're going to have to deal with that and have some tough conversations here. But hopefully they'll do the right thing, like unlike baseball, which I'm going to keep knocking on, and find a pathway forward, because outside the NFL, Asif, as you said, all of these leagues, they rely on consumers coming to the game, on fans coming. That's their number one revenue source. If that's not there, they will not be able to maintain themselves. And I really hope that this opens the way for XFL 23 on the Xbox, led by The Rock. I'm ready for that. It's time. Bring on the competition.
So watching sports, and I know y'all are very excited to watch a game tonight, right? And I get that sports are back. Data point of 1, find the empty arena sports stranger to watch. I can't put my finger on it, but it just isn't what I thought it was. Like, I like it, but it's not exactly the same. And I think there's going to be a real challenge, over time, when NFL looks more like a XFL game without that many fans there, right? And I get it's going to be the same players, theater, whatever, high school, right? But it looks and it sounds like a palpable different product than what we've been raised on.
Right.
Right? Cross with time, we'll see. Either more people are going to watch because they're like, oh my God, that's all there is. Or it'll be like now where, once again, I don't know the numbers. Jump in at any time. But I don't know that people know everything's going on with the NBA right now.
Have you seen the scoring, though, in the NBA? I think that, players are less shook playing in Disney World than they would be playing at an away game. Right,
Absolutely.
Or playing at Madison Square Garden or something.
I think that's in all sports right now. Because again, if you're a professional athlete,
baseball too.
Yeah, and I can speak to this. Right, if you're a professional athlete, your level of focus is already off the charts. Right now, there's no real distractions there outside, the fake fans or the
no hecklers. No hecklers.
Right, exactly. And I think a little things just like in the NBA, just taking a foul shot without people behind the net going crazy. The focus they're already at another level. So, and you can see this, like you said, in all of the major sports. I expect us to see it in football this year too, that there is absolutely I don't want to call it a skill jump, but there's a focus explosion going on right now that's allowing these guys to focus at a totally different level.
Yep.
Well, and I think even in baseball, I think the empty crowds, again, to the guys' points, is that I think that's why you're seeing a lot of guys underperforming typically to their standards, because it's weird when you hit a home run 440 feet and it just I think a meme started about the lonely baseball the other day about just sitting in the concrete bleachers at Yankee Stadium, because it's really weird to see. And I think so that's why I think it's actually good to baseball and to basketball, because the action on the court, you focus less on the crowd. In baseball, at least from my perspective, the home run, the fans reaching for foul balls and going crazy for home runs and reaching over and interacting with the ball boys and stuff. The crowd, I think, in baseball, it being absent, I think you're really seeing the game. It's very detrimental. And also the travel for baseball has clearly been detrimental to the game, instead of doing a bubble city, because we've had 4 outbreaks now where teams have had to literally cancel 2 weeks of their season apiece. I think the Cardinals, the Marlins
have like 7 doubleheaders to play or something.
The Yankees
like that,
too.
right?
It's been ridiculous. So I think definitely there's still a lot that we're going to have to work out.
And the Phillies.
And then, you could talk about the NCAA and what's going on with college football right now. And
I feel so bad for those kids.
There's no leadership. There's different conferences. But, I'm up here in Ohio, and, this is, all we care about is football in this town. I'm literally in Canton, Ohio, home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, right? So, it's all we care about here is football. No. Everyone's furious that Ohio State's not playing. But I've read about why the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have decided not to play, and it's because of this incidence of myocarditis in professional or young athletes.
Right.
These are players that could earn hundreds of millions of dollars in the future, and you're risking their lives for nothing.
Well, there's 2 things. One, there's only a couple kids who can earn all that money. Mm-hmm. All the other kids are not going to earn that money, and they'll still have the same thing with their hearts, forever.
But it'll be like infinite liability for a university.
Yeah. Well, it'll be like a new concussion that you knew about all along, right? And they've sort of been through that with concussions. They know about it, and it's going to be these kids are going to be 30, right, with heart conditions, or 19 or 20, young people trying to function. That's no good, number one. Number 2, though, I want to go back to Ray's point, which is super interesting to me, which is the idea of new clutch players who actually, the affordance of the bubbles and no crowds, that they rise to it. And they all their lives be like, God, if there would just be no fans, this would be perfect. I'm now a 600 hitter. I now can score every night because, Philadelphia, God, that Gritty throws me off my game. No Gritty? Oh my God, I am finally able to be all I ever was.
Gritty is everywhere all the time, Gordon.
Right?
And then the inverse, teams that benefit from their home court advantages.
Yes.
The Lakers.
And players.
The Lakers, the Yankees, there's definitely a lot of teams that thrive off that. But also to Gordon's point, until he got hurt again, Giancarlo Stanton was having a career year, and it's probably because not every Yankee fan isn't booing him every game because he's garbage.
Well, and we should also use the NHL as a great example here. Yeah. We've had 3 series at 3-1 go to Game 7. I guarantee you that does not happen if there is a home ice advantage in some of these games, right? There's no distractions, and the guys are very able to focus. So, and again, I don't remember the last time I saw 3-1 series go to a Game 7. I'm not sure if that's actually ever happened.
I've not watched a lot of hockey. What does it sound like? Do they play like the organ? Is the organ still going?
There's fans. There's fan sounds playing.
Yeah.
I'll hear really during the hockey games. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, it's the NBA's case, they have that
wall
of virtual fans that you can be a part of. I
do like what the NBA is doing. I do like that a lot.
They're trying. I agree that it's not the same. And I think you have that kid Murray on the Nuggets who's playing out of his mind right now. Who no one knew going into the playoffs. Damian Lillard was materially better in the bubble. You can go down the list. Players are shooting a lot better there than they would have been, I think.
Here's a hard question. Now this is the Finn. Do you want it in your games? Ask it to Ray. Do you want this? Okay, if it's in the game, it's in the game. How much of what is happening in the world right now?
Corona mode?
No, it's not. Oh, Corona's not a mode. Corona's reality.
No, it's in the game.
MLB The Show adding a 60-game season.
Yeah,
with no crowd noise.
And that being your choice because that's what's real, right?
I would love that. I would absolutely love that.
You get to be a part of it then.
If I could start a new franchise mode and it would say, do you want to start from a 60-game season for 2020? That would be pretty cool.
I think
I would like
basketball...
the option. I don't know if I would take it, but I think the option would be. I think first off, it would show that just how connected they are to reality, because sometimes I think game companies can sometimes be a little disconnected and a little don't not necessarily have their hand on the pulse of things. I think it would be a good option. I don't know if I would take that option necessarily, but I think a lot of folks would.
I think it'd be too much for a lot of people. I think that games are a place that at some level, all the realism aside, you want to play, and the game which is happening in real life is not as attractive a proposition as
I
you would
agree,
predict,
Gordon.
even virtually.
Yeah, I agree. I play sports games for an escape because I'm a Cleveland sports fan and all my teams suck. So like, I go to that place to like imagine a world where my teams don't suck. Yes. And I think included in that is imagining a world where the pandemic isn't happening.
It's
So I think that people are going. I think more than most years, people are going to go to sports games this year for escape, and I think that. We saw that during the strike years in the mid '90s in the MLB, or like during the work stoppages years in NBA. You know,
in
it's
NHL
like,
too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like people go to sports titles for an escape, and that if you want to be a sim though, if Madden is a football simulator, they should offer that, and NBA should offer that. But I personally, I wouldn't play that.
Well, I'll tell you what, Asif, this is actually a really great transition point. One of the people on the panel here, Ray, who's also the host of the show, has had a lot of success in these games right now by doing live play-by-play with a crowd, with his teams in the game. So in our show every week, we have something called a mashup, where we try and mash together sports and geekdom into one singular topic. And before we jump into the mashup today, we want everybody watching the show to take a look at somebody we call play-by-play Ray. Take a look at what Ray does here on Twitch when he's playing with the digital Yankees.
Runners at first and second now, and that brings up Torres, who's had a good series until tonight. Checks his swing on the outside cutter, 1-0. Aaron Judge pulls it down the third baseline and hit off the bag. Oh, the magic of Yankee Stadium. And now Torres! It's hit the deep left center field! This one is gone! The Yankees win! The Yankees win! It's a walk-off! A 3-run bomb in the bottom of the 14th! The Yankees win! In stunning fashion, they come back twice! They tie it in the 9th! They walk it off in the 14th! The Yankees win!
Ray, you may have a problem or you may be a genius. Either way, I love watching you do this nightly on your Twitch stream. I love watching you play. And you know what? Here's the thing, everybody. Ray has grown a massive audience doing this in a short amount of time, right, Ray? Especially on TikTok.
Well, yeah, it's big for the amount of time that I've been doing it. It's gotten pretty big pretty quickly. We got 9,000 followers on TikTok. We got 1,000 on Twitch. I love all of yous. Again, twitch.tv/Ray Carcillo, or just search Ray Carcillo on TikTok. But yeah, like it's amazing. And I think, to your guys' point, for a lot of folks who escape it, it's been great because a lot of the folks who come in are happy just to talk baseball with other people, because another thing we haven't talked about with the pandemic, and especially about a lot of these kids who are having to school from home and all this other stuff, has been they're finding a community where they're like, oh man, look at all these other people who like talking about baseball. And so a lot of times we're not even talking about the game. We're just all talking baseball and football with each other, because these kids, unfortunately, or even and adults too, don't have the social outlets that they had before the pandemic. And I guess I provided that a little bit.
You are.
Yeah, there's no water cooler.
Right. Exactly.
You're filling the gap, which is great. So here's what we're doing for the mashup. We wanted to give every one of the panelists an opportunity to ask Ray to do play-by-play for an existing sports highlight. You can choose anything you want. Asif, Cleveland does have some good ones that you get to pick from here. That's a good thing. And everything inside me, Ray, is making me want to pick Philadelphia sports, but I'm not going to do it because I care about you, Ray. But we're going to go right to the panel now. So, Gordon, why don't you start off? What is the sporting moment you want Ray to do? And again, we're going to actually do this. We're going to tee off Ray. He's actually going to do play-by-play for these plays.
So it's a real moment in real life, not a game moment in game life. Ooh.
So I can't do, like, if I accidentally quick sold a card?
Oh, okay. I know.
I know.
I know what I want. It's clear to me. It's going to be WNBA finals, that is a league we love and does not have like a call, like, the call, like the Miracle on Ice. That call has not existed yet. And I think Ray could deliver the passion. Ray could connect people with the talent in a moment.
Okay. All right. We'll look up a clip from last year's finals.
What's going to happen? Ray, you will do that.
I will do that. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
All right, Finn, let's go to you. You play a lot of digi sports, but you also have a lot of sports that you love, like Philadelphia sports, which somebody else on this show absolutely does. What would you pick for Ray? If you had to pick one play in history for play-by-play Ray to redo, what would it be?
All right, so I actually just thought of this one, and I think this is one Ray will like. I want you to do when Luis Castillo dropped the ball, that pop out. Or should have been a pop out.
That's a deep cut, buddy. That's one I completely forgot about because I tried to forget about A-Rod too. Just completely blocked them from my mind.
You won the game.
Yeah, it was against the Mets though. They're a dumpster fire. We should win every game against the Mets.
Okay, so passing the ball over to Asif. Asif, what moment do you have? And I promise you, he's going to make it better than whatever the announcers did on national television.
Oh, okay. That's gonna be tough because I'm going to give you two Cleveland sports moments. One's typical Cleveland sports, and the other one is like the greatest thing to ever happen to us. And then I'll let you choose. The block.
Right.
In 2016, LeBron James chased down block of Andre Iguodala. It's like the best thing to ever happen to Cleveland fans ever.
Yeah.
That says a lot, but yes.
It's an amazing play. Like if you go back and watch him, he is so far behind everyone, and he hits this next level. This turbo mode. And in 2016, LeBron James was a man possessed, especially after Draymond hit him in the nuts. But yeah, you don't hit LeBron James in the nuts and then call him names. That's all I gotta tell you. But anyway, that play.
Put that on a t-shirt.
That play, and you control me, or you control Cleveland fans, that last, that image of J.R. Smith forgetting the score. In the 2018 NBA Finals, where LeBron's like,
LeBron just besides himself.
Yeah.
Oh, I already know which one he's doing.
The series, I might do both of them just for fun. But I mean, that was like
it's the yin and yang.
The series was over right at that moment because it's just.
I want to see that one.
Yeah, I honestly think you could probably do a really good job with that second one because Mike Breen did an amazing job with the block. It's like blocked by LeBron James and all that great stuff. But there's that, it's like a minute and a half, the free throw all the way to that timeout where LeBron is just dead inside. I think you could do an amazing job.
Oh, the amount of memes that have come out of that too. So Ray, I thought a lot about this as I typically do. And the first thing that popped into my head was the miracle at the Meadowlands too, because it took place when you and I were both down in Florida the day after my wedding. And it was a wonderful moment for the Eagles, but it was not a wonderful moment for you. But I did have to get my digs in, because this is payback for some things you've said to me off the phone, which I told you I'd get you back for live on the air at PAX. I'm just kidding. Ray's my best friend. I was happy he was there. So I thought, how can I make it up for him? Because I just stabbed him in the heart a little bit. Ray, I want you to call
I hate Deshaun Jackson.
I want you to call the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers. A call that is actually very, very well done by Sam Rosen.
Yeah, it's an iconic call.
It is. And so I wanted to give you something challenging, but something I also know you can do to showcase how good you are at this. So I want you to call the Rangers beating the Vancouver Canucks in the 1994 Stanley Cup playoffs and final when Messier is doing that little jump thing that he does.
Yeah.
I think you'd enjoy that, and I think you'd be really good at it.
Awesome. So I appreciate your guys' suggestions, and we will remake these for our social medias. So, guys, I just want to say thank you again so much for being here. That's going to wrap up our PAX Online 2020 episode of Geeks Who Like Sports. Asif, Finn, Gordon, it has been an absolute pleasure, guys. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing episode. I wish we had more time, but unfortunately we don't. You all have to come back. Open invite. Whenever you guys want to come back on, just let us know. But yeah, again, thank you so much, folks. And out there, you can find us, of course, at geekswholikesport.com, Geeks Who Like SP1 on Twitter and Instagram. Search Geeks Who Like Sports on Facebook. And, of course, Geeks Who Like Sports wherever you hear your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Google. We're on all of them. So thank you again for watching. We really appreciate it. And we hope to see you next time with more Geeks Who Like Sports. Take care, everybody. Thanks again.